You made me love you. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. You made me want to.
Answered Verse by Peter James. Adapted by Craig Shelton. On a Parkinson show many years back, Sammy Cain, the great American lyricist and composer, told of sessions that he had had with other American lyricists where they were having fun with each other's lyrics. And most were funny, some had a sting in the tail, and the best seemed to me to really add to the original, to take a squinted look, to emphasise a different facet of truth. The one that always stuck with me was, "You made me love you. You woke me up to do it. You woke me up to do it," which I thought was rather funny at the time. Now, switching the territory to poetry, we played with some of the better-known couplets.
A wet sheet, just 1 cup of tea. That's how the Enuretic pee.
I measured out my life in coffee spoons, so controllable compared to suns and moons.
When lovely woman stoops to folly, at least one chap's less melancholy.
That's good fun. But we needed to stretch things further. Hence these verses that tackle entire poems. Not exactly parody, they take the form of the original, but aim to present a different, often opposing viewpoints. Now, we speak the originals as aides memoire, and also to ease the listener's ability to make the comparison. One of our best known playwrights, poets, writers, Christopher Marlowe, well, he illustrates the duality of many poets, who so often are capable of wild extremes. I guess manic depression we'd now call it, or as Spike Milligan says, "Do not cure my devils for fear you kill my angels." So, this first poem of Kit Marlowe's, is it genuine sentiment or is it hypocrisy? We have the passionate shepherd to his love.
Come live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove that hills and valleys, dale and field, and all the craggy mountains yield. There we will sit upon the rocks and see the shepherds feed their flocks by shallow rivers to whose falls melodious birds sing madrigals. There will I make thee bed of roses and 1,000 fragrant posies, a cap of flowers, and a kirtle embroidered all with leaves of myrtle, a gown made of the finest wool, from which our pretty lambs we pull, fair-lined slippers for the cold, with buckles of the purest gold, about a straw and ivy buds, with coral clasps and amber studs. And if these pleasures may thee move, come live with me and be my love. The shepherd swains shall dance and sing for thy delight each May morning. If these delights thy mind may move, then live with me and be my love.
Now, as our first piece of answered verse, as a response, here's a modern equivalent, with a change of gender, the voice of a modern woman. We have the passionate addict to her love.
Come live with me and be my love. For 2 can live as cheap as 1. A flat, the corner shop above, we'll take. Be quick before it's gone. We'll live a weekly rented life, so much cheaper than a house. I will be your unwedded wife, and you can be my unmarried spouse. We'll shake off dull reality, rid us of all depressing thought, with every chemical that we can pop or shoot or sniff or snort. Untroubled by all thoughts of age, or time, or death, or nemesis, from a worldly care we'll disengage, to drift into deep narcotic bliss. We'll live our lives out of this world, ethereally transmundaned and ultrably boy and girled, lost in a land of sweet cocaine. And if the tenor of our lives is threatened by funds running dry, we'll sally forth with kitchen knives, amongst and passer by. As proof of my sincerity, my last syringe I'll give to you. What more do you want? Come live with me.
Okay, you win. I'll live with you.
When we accuse people of having a cavalier attitude, we are, well, perhaps unconsciously taking the Cromwellian view. Now, Richard Lovelace, writer, poet, he was a true cavalier who fought and bankrupted himself in the King's cause, including in the years of Edge Hill, petitioning the Commons to restore the King his rights. He was jailed but unrepentant. Stone walls do not a prison make. And he used the time to revise and print his verses. He's not the first or last man to find military service a good excuse for shaking off a time-out lover. Here we have Richard Lovelace's To Leicester, Going to the Wars.
Tell me not, sweet, I am unkind. From the nunnery of thy chaste breast and quiet mind, to war and arms I fly. True, a new mistress now I chase, the first foe in the field, and with a stronger faith embrace a sword, a horse, a shield. Yet this inconstancy is such, as you too shall adore. I could not love thee, dear, so much. Loved I not honour more.
Hands up all those that haven't heard those last two lines. Now, a noble sentiment there from Master Lovelace, which we fancy dear Leicester, who is here portrayed as being, well, less endowed with grey matter and nous than with blonde hair and a lovely pair of nature, and to whom there are statistics far more vital than IQ, she quite misunderstands. So, as usual, ends up finding that ignorance is not always bliss. So in response we have Leicester on getting the wrong end of the stick.
Unkind? Of course you are unkind to leave so suddenly. And do I mind? Of course I mind. You would if you were me. Oh, you must do what you must do. Take any course you mind to. But I expected more from you, who I have been so kind to. I am insulted. Not for Jane, Celia or Leonore I'm tossed aside, but for that plain old strumpet on a moor.
Opening lines and final lines are often a poem's bookends, and some poems are filed in memory under the latter, Loved I not honour more, or You'll be a man, my son, others by the former. But half the worth of every poem lies not in the words the author wrote, but in what we read into them. If you like, heads, it's Abu Ben Adam. Tails, it's Jenny Kissed Me. The first of these I remember read in an annual assembly by a notable old headmaster, a pure uncorrupted socialist of the old school. And every time his voice broke on the final line, tears ran down his cheeks. Now that's poetry. And if you don't know Ben Adam, find it, pop it in your rattle bag. Despite the above, the coin this time comes down tails. And here we have Leigh Hunt tweaking another heartstring in his poem Jenny Kissed Me.
Jenny kissed me when we met, jumping from the chair she sat in. Time, you thief, who love to get sweets into your list. Put that in. Oh, say I'm weary. Say I'm sad. Say that health and wealth has missed me. Say I'm growing old, but add, Jenny kissed me.
Or perhaps alternatively, as a response, we could have,
Jenny kicked me where I sat, knocked me from the chair I sat in. Laid me winded on the mat. In your book of life, put that in. Say that when she promised love, that young hussy falsely tricked me. Write angelic scribes above. Jenny kicked me.
A kiss, of course, is also the euphemism for what is its often hoped for end product. Who can believe that the conquering soldier in Mandalay, for example, stopped at merely kissing the pretty Burmese maiden where she stood, any more than they remained standing as he did so. Not that it suggested that Jenny went further, but if we read the subtext... Now, on to Dorothy Parker, a poet, short story writer, screenwriter, with a cruel wit. She died after countless failed affairs, abortions, suicide attempts, in a haze of bootleg whiskey in her Manhattan apartment. Her only company, her poodle Troy. Very Hollywood. And verse doesn't always have to be of the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner length. Here, at the other extreme, is perhaps Dorothy Parker's best-known stiletto.
Men never make passes at girls who wear glasses.
To which Barb, the International Society of Opticians, commissioned the following rebuttal.
Oh, yes, they do. Who says man never ogles at girls wearing goggles? I've not found that sporting specs cuts my chances of courting sex. Most men, when 100% visible, are in fact so risible, so comical in matters anatomical, that I'm quite delighted to be short-sighted, and don't put my glasses back on till after they've come and gone.
17th century poets were very conceited, in the sense of a conceit being a fanciful and artificial means of expression. The old poets also pseudonym their lady loves, with the same complexity that Victorian girls used in the language of flowers. Now, as a note here, William Strode's verse was only rediscovered in 1907, which, 300 years nearly after the originally spoken, it encourages unpublished authors to cultivate their virtue of patience. Here we have William Strode's Clarice in the Snow.
I saw fair Clarice walk alone, when feathered rain came softly down, as Jove descending from his tower to court her in a silver shower. The wanton snow flew to her breast, like pretty birds in their nest, but overcome with whiteness there, for grief it thawed into a tear. Thence, falling onto her garment's hem, to deck her, froze into a gem.
Now, of course, we mustn't deny poor old Clarice a hearing.
It's no fun. Small wonder that I walked alone. Small wonder I was on my own. Who else so daft I'd like to know, as to go out dressed like this in snow? Slave both to fashion and to image, caught in a dress with too much cleavage, exposed to snowflake gooseflesh cold. On cue, Strode striding in cried, "Hold! This sight inspires me to compose." He scribbled furiously. I froze.
This overblown of sentiments often still goes on in poetry. Now let's update it to the liberated 20s with a poem called Leisure, and I think many of you will recognise straight away the first two lines of this well-known poem.
What is this life, if, full of care, we have no time to stand and stare? No time to stand beneath the boughs and stare as long as sheep and cows. No time to see when woods we pass, where squirrels hide their nuts in grass. No time to see, in broad daylight, streams full of stars, like skies at night. No time to turn at beauty's glance, and watch her feet, how they can dance. No time to wait till her mouth can enrich that smile her eyes began. A poor life this if, full of care, we have no time to stand and stare.
In response, I guess we look at that old chestnut of relativity. So we have a poem that could well find itself in 1980s Britain or even the current lockdown crisis. We have Too Much, Too Soon.
What is this life? At 53 facing enforced redundancy, clutching the dread P45, no hope of keeping hope alive. No cash to do the things enjoyed by those who are not unemployed. When I was working, I would treasure each longed-for moment of scarce leisure. but now I'm free from pitted grime. All I've got on my hands is time. Silence I loved when it was rare, but endless quiet is hard to bear. A poor life this if booted out. There's too much time for doing now.
We islanders have the sea in our blood, it is often said. That was before air travel, I fancy, when bouncing over the waves was the only means of escaping these shores. And contributing to this sentiment was our veneration of those who go down to the sea in ships. Still, we do often like to be beside the seaside, albeit, mostly these days in Mediterranean or West Indian waters. But in terms of our love of the sea, we have the wonderful poem Sea Fever by John Masefield.
I must go down to the seas again, to the lonely sea and the sky, and all I ask is a tall ship and a star to steer her by, and the wheels kick and the wind's song and the white sail shaking, and a grey mist on the sea's face and a grey dawn breaking. I must go down to the seas again, to the call of the running tide, is a wild call and a clear call that may not be denied, and all I ask is a windy day, with the white clouds flying, and the flung spray, and the blown spume, and the seagulls crying. I must go down to the seas again, to the vagrant gypsy life, to the gull's way and the whale's way, where the wind's like a whetted knife. And all I ask is a merry yarn from a laughing fellow rover, and a quiet sleep and a sweet dream when the long trick's over.
A fever being a madness of the blood. Let's try and update Masefield's poem and add in a change of sex to consider briefly a current idolatry. Now, it shares the same motive as Masefield's of indulging in personal satisfaction, but without the effort needed in a life before the mast. Like many of today's attitudes, it assumes that things will not be done by us, but for us. Not earning, but spending, as Stevie Smith might have put it. In response, we have she fever.
I must get down to 6 stone again, so just spin the apricot pie. For all I ask is a slim calf, 3 inches off hip and thigh, to be wrinkle-free from scalp to knee, with an eye devoid of bag, and a single chin, and glowing skin, and an arse that doesn't sag. I must go down to the clinic again, to consult with Jones MD, where my friend Grace got a new face through cosmetic surgery. And all I want is a trout pout, and some Botox, and then perhaps the increased thrust of an implanted bust. That'll go down well with the chaps. I must go down to the gym again, and hope for, by raising large weights, a flat tum and a bouncy bum, and to lose a spare tire from my waist. And all I ask is that this task will not prove an impossible dream, to be nubile. In the meanwhile, pass me over that tub of ice cream.
A few years ago, The Spectator ran a challenge that involved a parody of possibly one of the most famous verses of all time, Shakespeare's Sonnet Number 18, that begins with the immortal line, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" It seems a very fitting place to finish our exploration of answered verse by us responding to the greatest writer of all.
Shall I compare thee to a cockapoo? Thou art less tussled, less importunate.
Thou dost not slaver when thy food is due, nor lick thy parts, nor shamelessly seek a mate.
Shaming thy master in some public place, no moonward howls of thine my sleep disturb, although thy midnight yelp were no disgrace. Shouldst thou perchance wish not my will to curb,
Yet temper in our spanieled cur is meek, compared to thine when things teats up have turned.
As when I souse thy pod and thou didst wreck, thy wrath in words that thou shouldst not have learned.
I go compare in vain, for by my troth, fair wife and motley mutt, I love you both.
You made me love you. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. You made me want to. And all the time you knew it. I guess you always knew it. You made me happy sometimes.